His Excellency Dr. Win Kutri, Vice Minister, Ministry of Agriculture and Environment of Vietnam, Mr. Win Van Kung, Vice Chairman, the People's Committee of Quang Ninh Province, His Excellency Tony Jonas R. Leonis, Chair of the ACB Governing Board, Under Secretary for Policy, Planning and International Affairs, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Republic of the Philippines, His Royal Highness Pangeran Muda Omar Ali Ibni Duli Pangeran Muda Muhammad Bulkiah, Curator of Natural History and Manager of Tasek Marimbun Heritage Park, Dr. Jerome L. Montemayor, ACB Executive Director, distinguished representatives of the ASEAN Member States, the European Union and partners, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to join you virtually as we mark the 8th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference in Halong City, Quang Ninh Province. My appreciation goes to the Ministry of Agriculture and Environment of Vietnam for convening this gathering, and to ASEAN Centre for Biodiversity, the European Union, the Federal Republic of Germany, KfW Development Bank, Metro Pacific Investments Corporation, and IMA World Health for their collective efforts in bringing this conference to fruition. Before proceeding further, allow me to express my deep sympathy for the families and communities in the central regions of Vietnam affected by the severe storms and floods very recently. The loss of lives, livelihoods, and homes has been devastating, and we stand in solidarity with all those impacted and with the authorities and responders working tirelessly to support recovery efforts. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to congratulate Vietnam and Malaysia on the recent designation of their ASEAN Heritage Parks, endorsed at the 18th ASEAN Ministerial Meeting on the Environment and Longevity on 3rd September 2025. These additions raised the total number of ASEAN Heritage Parks from 51 to 69 since the 7th conference in Indonesia in 2022. The ASEAN Heritage Parks program stands as a flagship initiative for biodiversity conservation in our region. It reflects our shared determination to protect and preserve the natural heritage that sustains us. The ASEAN Community Vision 2045, adopted at the 46th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, recognizes the fast evolving global landscape and the need for effective, innovative responses. By advancing the AHP program, we strengthen our collective ability to confront major regional trends, climate change, environmental degradation, and biodiversity loss, while contributing to global commitments such as those under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN's forests, rivers, lakes, peatlands, and seas underpin our economies, energy security, social well-being, and regional stability, fundamental to the lives of almost 680 million people. As we reflect on the value of nature and the role of biodiversity in sustainable development, allow me to highlight several points. First, although ASEAN occupies just over 3% of the world's land area, it holds more than a quarter of the planet's known flora and fauna species. Forests, our primary ecosystems, and major carbon pools are central to addressing the intensifying pressures climate change, and human activities. In 2020, forests cover more than 2 million square kilometers, or around 47% of our land area. Yet these ecosystems, including mangroves, face mounting pressures from economic expansions and rising demand for timber and non-timber forest products. Between 2000 and 2020, ASEAN lost roughly 8,000 square kilometers of forest each year, nearly 10 times the size of Singapore, placing our region among the world's deforestation hotspots. Second, following the recent COP30 in Brazil, the deep interconnection between biodiversity and climate change warrant renewed attention. Climate change is projected to become one of the most significant drivers of biodiversity loss by century's end. The ASEAN Biodiversity Plan, launched at the 16th UN Biodiversity Conference in 2024, outlines the region's contributions to the global framework and underscores the need to mainstream biodiversity considerations across sectors, including health, infrastructure, agriculture, fisheries, aquaculture, and forestry. Nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based adaptation are emerging as critical pathways toward achieving environmental and climate sustainability. The joint statement to COP30, adopted at the 47th ASEAN Summit, highlights approaches such as mangrove conservation, wetland restoration, climate-smart agriculture, and the integration of traditional, indigenous, and local knowledge for the protection of biodiversity while maximizing co-benefits for both communities and nature. Third, the ASEAN Joint Statement to the 16th UN Biodiversity Conference envisions a region strengthened by healthy terrestrial and marine ecosystem, supporting resilience and enabling a thriving blue, green, and biocircular economy. Achieving this vision requires cross-sectoral collaboration and full integration of biodiversity into development planning. ASEAN is well positioned to drive coordinated action among member states, supported by the ASEAN Centre for Biodiversity and aligned with regional and global commitments, including the ASEAN Leaders' Declaration on One Health Initiative, the ASEAN Blue Economy Framework, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the Convention on Biological Diversity. Finally, broad and meaningful engagement across all stakeholders is essential to address the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollutions. Our efforts must prioritize: first, mobilizing finance for nature and green investment. Second, ensuring inclusive approaches for local communities, indigenous peoples, and vulnerable groups. Third, strengthening collaboration with civil society, scientific networks, academia, think tanks, the private sectors, and industry to develop practical solutions. And fourth, enhancing youth participation by creating avenue for young people to contribute to the AHP program and its sites. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we are navigating an increasingly complex landscape. In such times, strong and consistent leadership in nature conservation, sustainable development, and climate action becomes indispensable. This conference offers an invaluable platform to share knowledge, exchange practical experience, and forge partnerships that strengthen protected area management through science-based and inclusive approaches, and scale up nature-based solutions across ASEAN. In line with Malaysia's ASEAN Chairmanship theme this year, emphasizing inclusive and sustainable progress, and looking ahead, to the Philippines Chairmanship theme for next year. Navigating our future together, our shared direction is clear. Let this conference reaffirm our collective commitment to a future where biodiversity conservation, sustainable development, and climate resilience advance in unison, guided by cooperation, solidarity, and shared responsibility. I wish the 8th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference productive discussions and meaningful outcomes. I thank you.